So, you've managed to secure a patent in one of Asia's massive tech hubs. That's a huge deal, right? But what if I told you that's actually the easy part? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the real challenge, keeping your intellectual property alive and well in China, Japan, and South Korea long after all that initial paperwork is done.
Okay, picture this. You've done it. After months, maybe even years of grinding, your patent is granted. Your trademark is officially on the books. You can finally lean back and relax, right? Well, not so fast. You have to ask yourself, is the work really over?
Yeah, not even close. Think of it this way. Getting your IP granted is kind of like qualifying for the Olympics. It's a massive achievement for sure, but the real race, that marathon of maintenance, strategy, and just constant vigilance, that's only just beginning.
Ready to jump into the nitty-gritty? Here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the real price of innovation. Then we'll dive into the high-stakes game of annual fees. We're going to look at what happens when deadlines get missed, how the rule book itself is always changing, and then we'll wrap it all up with a super important IP strategy check-in.
First up, let's talk about the price of innovation. And I don't just mean the cost of coming up with that initial brilliant idea. Nope, I'm talking about the price of keeping that idea protected and alive. It's a constant investment, a real, ongoing commitment. And here's the absolute bottom line. Your IP is not some trophy you just put up on a shelf to admire. It's a living, breathing asset. It needs to be fed with annual fees, you've got to protect it from the constant threat of missed deadlines, and you have to help it adapt to a legal world that is always changing.
So how does this actually play out in the real world? Well, let's dive into the fascinating and frankly often high-stakes world of annual fees. We're going to put a spotlight on the totally different strategies of two of Asia's biggest powerhouses, Japan and South Korea.
Okay, this is where things get really interesting. You see, back in 2022, Japan went ahead and hiked its IP fees. Then, just a year later, South Korea slashed theirs. We are talking about two of the world's top tech hubs taking completely opposite approaches. The big question is, why? And this quote right here, it just nails it. For South Korea, this isn't really about the money. The Korean Intellectual Property Office, or KIPO, is playing a much bigger game. They're using these fees to send a clear message. Hey, we want you to hold onto your IP, and we want to make it easier for you to license it and transfer it.
And right here you can see the two philosophies in black and white. Japan's fee hike was very practical, nuts and bolts stuff, covering their costs, upgrading their systems. But South Korea's fee cut, that was about something much bigger, trying to create a more dynamic, more open IP market. It's a really powerful reminder that these fees are not just numbers, they're a window into a country's national strategy.
Okay, so we've talked about the cost of playing the game. But what happens if you, well, miss a move? Let's shift our focus to the super high-stakes world of deadlines, using a case study from China that will definitely make you think twice about hitting snooze on your payment reminders.
I mean, it's the nightmare scenario for anyone who holds IP, right? A missed email, a calendar reminder that just gets ignored, and poof, a critical deadline is in the rearview mirror. In a market as gigantic and as important as China, the fallout from that can be absolutely devastating. So, what happens next? The second you miss that due date, a clock starts ticking, loudly. You get a 6-month grace period, but believe me, it is gonna cost you. After just 1 month, those penalties start piling up. And if you miss that entire 6-month window, you'll get an official termination notice. That's when things get really serious. Your window to save that patent is closing, and it is closing fast.
But okay, deep breaths. All is not necessarily lost. China actually gives you two potential lifelines. The first path is for what they call justifiable reasons. You can think of this as a get-out-of-jail-free card, but you have to play it fast. You've only got 2 months after you get that termination notice. The second path is for force majeure events, things totally out of your control, like natural disasters. This one is a much harder case to make, but it does buy you more time. The key here is knowing you have options and acting on them immediately.
So, we've covered fees, we've covered deadlines, but what about the rules of the game themselves? Well, they're always in flux, and South Korea's massive 2025 IP law overhaul is just a perfect example of why you absolutely cannot afford to take your eye off the ball. And listen, these are not just minor tweaks. We're talking about a major shakeup. For the very first time, just exporting a knockoff product is now clearly patent infringement. Big pharmaceutical companies are facing new, tighter limits on their patent extensions. The whole system is being streamlined. But the real headline grabber is that last point on the list.
Take a look at this number, 5x. In the world of intellectual property, a number that big can really only mean one thing. And trust me, it's not good news if you're an infringer.
So here's what that 5x is all about. South Korea is sending a crystal clear message to counterfeiters and any other bad actors out there. We are coming for you. Courts can now hit infringers with damages up to 5 times the actual harm they've caused. That is a total game changer for IP enforcement in the region.
Phew, we have covered a ton of ground. We've talked about fees, deadlines, and a legal landscape that's basically always on the move. So what does this all mean for you and your strategy? Let's wrap things up with a final check-in.
All right, so here's what you really need to take away from all this. First, vigilance is everything. Your IP will not protect itself. Second, you've got to pay attention to the fees. They are telling you a story about a country's big picture priorities. Third, never, ever, ever miss a deadline. But if you do, know your options for fixing it. And finally, remember that the rules are always evolving. You have to stay informed or you risk getting left behind.
And that really brings us to the million-dollar question. The IP landscape in Asia is a constantly moving target. What we've discussed today is just a snapshot of what's happening on the ground right now. So, as we wrap up, I'll leave you with this one thought. Is your IP strategy actually built for the future, or is it stuck in the past?